I received a parcel finally. Now this is the microbit or uBitX case from I think it is from amateurradiokits, and this is the, well, it looks like it's a proper made case for the uBitX board, which I have over here somewhere. Now I've been waiting for this for a long time. It did take a while to get here, but I have to say that the company themselves, when I did, I emailed them sort of just chasing it up, just to make sure everything was okay. Although they didn't respond and engage in any sort of worthwhile sort of communication, they did just ping me a link over from the DHL thing, just to let me know, you know, where and when it was coming, or so I was able to track it. I don't know whether that was just because maybe they, you know, because they're obviously an Indian company, whether there was sort of like a language barrier and they didn't want to get sort of too bogged down in a conversation. But nonetheless, here's the board. It's a bit lost in there, and what we've got here, this is the Raduino, which is the actual screen, which obviously just pops in there like so. Yeah, so I'm going to try now and sort of really sort of start putting this thing together. Just really sort of trying to work out where everything's going to go. What I did order at the same time as this device was I ordered the data kit, which you can sort of see here. Now, I didn't realise that this actual kit, it wasn't very expensive. I mean, I think it was about $85 in total for the case. The actual radio itself was a little more expensive, but it was only about 110 quid, something like that, or about $120. I basically bought the case because I like things to look nice. I don't really I'm not really one for sort of bodging a case together, so I just thought, well, I'll buy it and it's done then. But you get quite a lot for your money. I was quite impressed. There's like little brackets. I bought a spare front panel for it as well, because at some point I want to change the display from this like single color sort of module through to one of these OLED bright sort of colored screens. So I bought that because at least I've got it and it's ready to roll. I love the color. It's really well finished, and this is really nicely done. This is a polyester powder of some description, and it is nicely done. The fit and finish is actually a lot better than I was expecting. So yeah, it's very good indeed. I'm just trying to line up the holes. In fact, I can see where they go now. So what I'll do is I'll start putting some of this together, and it looks as if it's fairly straightforward. Let me just get rid of that out of the way. Don't want to scratch it. This came all very nicely wrapped, by the way. It was very nicely done indeed. No grumbles there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start putting this part together now. I believe this is kind of how it works. I do have some little washers and bits and pieces laying around, which I'll put in there. It's interesting. Holes are a bit on the big side. So yeah, all right. It's going to keep me busy. Let's just see where this is going to go. I mean, I love building these sort of kit things. It's not been a complete kit, I'll be honest. It did sort of come supplied as you see it here, and you know, it's quite nicely done, and apparently they're assembled and tested from the get-go, and he simply plugs in there. You want to be a bit careful with these pins, make sure you get them just perfect, that could be a little bad otherwise. Let's try and lower it down into position. What I'm trying to do is establish which set of spaces I'm going to need. Believe it or not, that's quite a long way up. It looks as if it might be those. That is quite a long way up indeed. Now there were actually some other spaces as well that came with yeah, I reckon it's those. Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. So the first, if you're going to use this window, or this display, then you're going to need the long ones. Now later on, when you, by the looks of it, when you go over to the OLED, if you go over to the OLED screen, this one, looks like you might need the short ones. Now, downside with this is it's going to need some form of washer. So what I'm going to do is going to have a little look in my box of joy. Okay, so I've had a good look for some washers, but I can't find any, so I've opted for using these. Put that back to wide. And what I'm going to do is I will put them through this way, I think, with the nuts outwards. You can see that. I will put it outwards, but what I'm going to do first is, because there's quite a bit of paint in there, what I'll do is I'll just whip just a little bit of that out, so that the brass has somewhere to go. Right, and now that should just about make a little bit. Yeah, it does. These, it could really do with some washers on there, but I don't have any. I did have a look, I can't find them, so I'm just gonna bodge it and leg it. So what I'll do is I'll try and get that somewhere near tight on there. I'm not going to go mad, because to be honest, I don't really need to at this stage. So we'll just put him on there. So you guys have been asking about antennas for tough locations, and that one's really difficult, because I'm asked quite a lot about that sort of thing, and I'm not the biggest antenna expert or anything like that, and I don't even claim to be, but it's always very difficult trying to help people out with antennas when they've got really difficult situations. And normally it's they live in sort of like apartments or something like that, and it's very difficult. I was talking to one of the guys at the open day, Andy, and another guy with a dog. I'm beggared if I can't actually remember his name, but he was saying that he had a plant by a mag loop, and the RF killed the plant, which made me laugh. And worse than that, I think apparently it was some kind of plum plant or a plum tree or something like that, and he ate the plum and it made him ill. I don't promote eating plants that have been killed by RF radiation. That doesn't sound good. Put that in the wrong hole. Let's try it again. I don't want to make this video go on forever, because that would be daft. I just want to kind of piece this all together so that I can sort of see where I'm heading with it all. and get sort of some idea that what's got to be done and where. Is one of the best things I ever did was bring my toolbox up here. That was absolutely fantastic. Does help. I have the right size screwdriver. So there you go, that's a bit better. Oh. So hopefully this will work. It's very reminiscent to building computers, which I've built a few of over my time. For those of you that don't know, this is a uBitX mainboard, which was purchased as you see it, basically. Yeah, they're really quite good. Apparently it's built by women in a village in India, and it's their little bit of income for the yeah, so that's pretty cool. Kind of keeps them all in work, which is really nice. And they've done a pretty smashing job, I have to say. Would be help if that would go in. Oh, I see. Wants to pull over just a bit. There you go. Sorry, I've got my big fists in the way. So I'm just going to nip those up. None of this is probably going to have to come out again at some point. I just want to make sure that everything's going in the right place and that nothing is stressed in the process. Try and keep everything nice and straight, and so it doesn't hit on anything. Okay, that's probably why they've done that. So I'm lining the pins up and they are in their correct positions, and then when we look at the front of that, it's not bad. It needs to go over just a smidge, I think. It could do with going over just a bit. So let's loosen those off. Just pushing it over at the same time. No, it's not perfect. We'll work on that. We'll get that to go over just a little bit more in a moment. Yeah, we'll get that to go on in just a second. I could just do it being pushed over just a little bit. I don't know how to do that yet. We'll work on that. Okay, so let's have a little look and see what else has got to go in. This looks like it's a fairly straightforward build, and then that just pops in there somehow. Looks like it goes underneath. Yeah, that's got to go underneath, I think. Let's pop those out. Let's pop these things out of there. go. It appears that the holes and stuff they're not drilled in the center and things like that, so it's a bit squiffy here and there, so you might need to do a little bit of machining on it as it goes together, which is why I'm just doing a little dry fit. You never know, it might be enough to keep it in there, but I don't think so. Okay, that was a bit of a weird one. It would appear that the nut has got no thread on it or something, and it's just like popping up and down on the thread. Yeah, it's not very good at all, that one. Yeah, it's like the nut's too big and it's just like sliding up and down the thread. I could almost push that on with my fingers. Yeah, as you can see, the thread's actually worn on that one. We'll use him for something else probably. It's not as if I'm short of the bits. Let's have a little line up of him. Okay, so he goes in there quite nicely. Alright, well that's also interesting. Yeah, this panel seems to hit on the actual chassis, and it doesn't go through very far, so that might be a little bit of an issue. And also the holes don't line up, so I think we're going to be doing something with those. Quite what, I don't know. I'm probably going to have to re-drill those because they're definitely not right. So what I'm going to do is I'll stop the video here and we'll call this one part 1, but what I'll do is I'll try and work out what I'm going to do with the next bit, and then yeah, we'll go from there. But so a quick look and see what we've done so far. Obviously the main board's in. I've pushed this thing together just to sort of see what's happening, and I'm just trying to work out where everything is going to go and whether or not it's actually going to fit. While I'm here, I will also put things like the fuse holder in there, and I'm going to decide also on the type of reverse polarity protection I'm going to use. Now somewhere around here I've actually got something that I've been experimenting with, which is, if I can find it, and it has gone. It's hardly surprising on this bench of joy. Doesn't matter, it will turn up in a minute. I've actually got a TVS, which is a transient voltage diode, and what that can do is essentially it will protect you from either over voltage, and they've normally got a threshold of about sort of 15 or so volts, and they start to basically conduct after about, you know, that, and the more over voltage you go, the more they conduct. They can carry a significant amount of current, which is normally enough to blow the fuse, and they will take a bit of abuse one way. However, should you reverse polarity the diode, it's normally game over at a very low voltage, or a very sort of very quickly they will fail, and they fail in a spectacular fashion. They will normally go absolute short circuit and pop your fuse. They are fairly quick, but it doesn't mean to say that it will save your life or your board. It may not be enough. Oh, here we go. And this is, I did put him to one side. This is the little circuit that I've actually got on the go at the moment. And what I've been doing is I've just put a resistor in there just to stop the diode from blowing up. But what I've done is I've gone over voltage, and I'm just measuring at what point, and I think this one's about sort of 15 volts. So the minute it starts to exceed 15 volts, this starts to conduct. Yeah, it conducts quite well, to be honest. But they will tolerate quite a lot. Very clever thing. They do in this kit, funny enough, give you a little board. Is it that one? It might be this one, actually. Yeah, it might be this one. Where you can put a diode in there, basically in between that those 2 points, and this is the main board, which takes the feed from the input. So this is where, you know, this is what it will do. This is the bit where it will blow the fuse, and this is that main protection. So yeah, so that's the next sort of step. I think I'll have a little look at that. What I've done is I've just been through the screws, and I've screwed this front panel on, because if you remember, this glass wasn't quite lining up. The actual screen behind there wasn't quite lining up with the socket. So what I've done is I've just gone through and located the little screws. You will notice if you're building one of these kits as well, they don't actually say, but these screws with the little tiny flange top on, there are actually 2 lengths of those, and there are 4 slightly longer ones, and you need those for this front part. So what actually happens is, when you go in, when you get this, if you buy this exterior kit, this case, you get 2 lots of standoffs. Okay, the long ones are the board standoffs, and the short ones are the screen standoffs, and you can just see that I put them in here, behind here. And what I did was I took this whole assembly out, put the standoffs on this front board, because that actually just splits apart from that. Just nip those on, and then I've just put the front screws on here. Now, like I've said before, this is just a dry fit. I'm just putting this all together just so I can maybe get the looms all put together, and then what I'll do is I'll go around again later on and actually fit all the other bits and pieces as they go a little nicer, straighten everything up, and then do a nice little cable tidy at the end of it. So I'm just going to put this together just so roughly. So yeah, that's the next little bit. I've also put the feet on, which I believe are the feet. Doesn't actually say again. I think this bit of angle bracket here is the base foot. And what I've done is, from the original uBit kit, they give you these flat cheese heads, which I've put on the bottom because they're not quite long enough to go all the way through. And the other thing that I found is blooming annoying. Here in the UK, we are completely metric, or majority of us are completely metric nowadays, and you'll find that the screws and everything that come with this, I think, are basically old English, which is an absolute pain in the arse, to be frank, because none of your spanners are going to fit, none of your you know, bits and bobs. And yeah, so if you're expecting this to all be sort of like 2 and 3 millimeters and stuff like that, it's not going to happen. This is all sort of like UNC and UNF, or even Whitworth by the looks of it. Some of it, I don't know where all the nuts and bolts have come from. Big shame that, but hey ho, you essentially work with it. So yeah, so it's starting to look like a radio. I'm going to start putting some of the extra little bits and pieces in now. So what I'll do is I'll start putting the on-off switch in. Now the ground, there's a ground position down here. I'm going to have to do a little bit of jiggery pokery with a countersink or something there. Okay. I think it looks quite nice in this yellow. I mean, to be honest, this is a really well sorted kit of bits. I mean, it does have its, I think, cost limiter. You know, it does sort of show its cost a little bit here and there, but I think for its performance, I'm told, is very, very good. Now, I don't know if you guys are familiar with a podcast called Solder Smoke. It's one of my favourite things. It's really, really good. It's Bill. Oh gosh, it's Bill and Pete Juliano. Just trying to think of Bill's name. It doesn't matter. Anyway, they just chitty chat about stuff. The podcast's been going for quite a long time. I mean, Bill did that right from the get go, and then a little while back, Pete came along and actually goes on it, and they really do work well together. There's a bit of chemistry together. Although actually the episode 215, Pete didn't sound all that happy. I don't know if he was all right, whether he was feeling a bit under the weather. It was around it's around sort of their Thanksgiving time there. He might have had a bit of a tough weekend, who knows. But yeah, he didn't sound all that happy. So Pete, if you're watching this, I hope you're all right, mate. But yeah, that's how I kind of got into this kit, because they actually built, well, I mean, they're always building bits and pieces, and they absolutely love these. Well, they seem to like them. I think Bill was quite friendly with the designer. Was it Furhan or something like that? I can't remember. So we've got the on-off switch. What else we got going there? All right, okay. There is also a power point in here as well. That's interesting. Will he go on there? The antenna point. Yeah, we can get some of this stuff on there. As I say, like I say, this is just dry fit. Just trying to learn where everything goes. You can always take it off, put it on there again later. Just trying to sort of, once everything starts, you know, when you start soldering everything up, that's it. There you go. Try not to keep knocking those. If you knock a component, it's probably best not to straighten it up. Keep straightening it up. All right. If you knock a component, just leave it, straighten them up at the end. Have a bit of a tidy up later. That way you're not straining anything. There's no, it looks as if there's no sort of keying of any of the holes on these. Okay, that is something to bear in mind, because what you'll find is that everything rotates. So if you've got like a PL259 on there, that it gets a bit stuck, that is going to start rotating that. All right, there's no keying on there at all. Just a little tip with these sort of things: when you're trying to get the nut to go on, it's very easy to cross thread these sort of things, and that when that happens, it can actually be quite a pain in the neck to get undone. What you do is you reverse. If you rotate it the opposite way until the thread clicks, once it clicks, and then you can just turn it the other way, then you'll find it will start to locate. And that's a nice little tip. And funny enough, I heard that repeated back to me the other day, which was quite funny. I didn't say anything, you know. It's quite I find it quite sweet, to be honest. Right, now then, there you go. So we've now got a radio, starting to look like a radio on the back there. And what I'll do is I'll start populating some of the front as well. One thing I might modify on this is they give you a 4-pin sort of Foster plug, although they call it an XLR. they give you a 4-pin, which is the old CB type mics, that sort of thing. I'm probably going to change this for an 8-pin, and the reason why is that I can wire it so that it will accept, say, a Yaesu microphone, because number one, they seem to be, they're good quality microphones, but also they are very good for things like if you want to use a Heil or something like that, so that if someone else has got a microphone, it's very easy. You can, you know what happens when you take these things out and about, and that's the idea with this. It's going to go out and about. Yeah, it will go out and about, and if someone wants to use a particular headset or something like that, then at least it can be done. Right, okay, so but for the test purposes we'll just use this. So he's in there. Now I still haven't worked out how to do this bit, so I'm going to just think about that now, but you can see that it's starting to come together, and it looks all right. I'm quite pleased with it. Right, okay, so I'll be back in a second. So what I'll do now is I'll just get this soldered up, and I'll get these pieces cut to length and actually inserted in the actual board, and I'll get these soldered up. So bear with while I do that. done quite a bit more. Obviously I've soldered up the board, done the speaker now, and getting this ready to roll. Check for dry joints. It's not the easiest thing to get these in because some of the holes weren't lined up and it was actually a bit fiddly, especially this one. You can't really, I don't know if you can see just how out of line they are, but they are quite out of line, those. In fact, you can see around the back, probably easier. So now I'm just going to put the encoder board together, and slowly this is starting to come together. So what I might do is I might stop in a minute and try and string some of this these videos together, have a little bit of a break from the soldering and the electronics, and I'll get this part edited. But meanwhile, what I'll do is I'll get this soldered on. Actually, in a bit of hindsight, probably the boards could do a bit of a clean, actually, to be honest. But I'm excited to get this put together, and I dare say you'll be the same. Yeah, the boards, they've got something on it, they're not very good. They're not the best quality boards I've seen. These are a bit of an afterthought, if that were possible. Right, so there's the encoder board put together. I can trim those little bits off the back there just to make it a little more flush. And there's also these two ground tabs around the side here, so we'll get them on there as well. These will take a fair bit of solder, and they're playing silly beggars, that one doesn't want to go. So all close, there you go. Come on. I'm actually hole filling. There's quite a big hole down the side there, so you kind of got to try and you've got to sort of stuff it down the hole. There you go. Hopefully I haven't overheated the thing. You can see that the solder's been going down that a lot better, a lot more than the on the board. Yeah, you might want to just wire brush the boards off, actually, thinking about it before you start doing it. Just give the, you know, like a bit of wire wool or something like that on the on the contacts or on the pads, just to sort of get them ready to go, just to put in there, which I'll do in a second. There are some instructions which I've been referring to here and there. just push them in there like so. Now the thing to do is, if they're slightly out of line, don't try and push this up and then try and get them in. Give it a little bit of distance. Okay, and find your screwdriver. Yeah, if you push this all the way through, give it a little bit of distance between that and the thing, and you can then twiddle that thing round, or give it a little push in a direction, and it just gives you a little bit of wiggle room. And leave it very loose to help you with the next one. And again, we're going to use one of these long ones. Just gently lift him up, push him in there, and again just push it away from the case, and that'll give you just that little bit of wiggle room just to get that one in. And somewhere around, it's got more of these screws, and that should now be lined up with the rest of them. Now you're probably going to need to loosen these screws off a little bit in the future to get the plastic film off of the laser cut acrylic cover. And put him in there. Now this one hopefully is lined up, because it's a real pain in the neck to get to. So we can then do that up like so. Again, I'm not tightening these up, I'm just putting everything together, just dry, because I don't know if I've got to take it off again. Okay, so what next? That looks pretty good actually. I'm very pleased indeed. And then this one is showing with the black also leaving the board on that side. So we can just connect that up like so. What I might do, they give you some really nice cable rope as well, which I might just twiddle around some of it, maybe, don't know. We'll have a little look in a minute. Maybe I'll save a bit for that. We'll see where we end up. Okay, so that is where we are. I'm going to call it a day. I've got a drop of splosh, which I'm going to partake in now, and I'm going to decide where I'm going to go next, because yeah, it's starting to get nearly there, I think.